Nah, nah. Yeah, yeah, baby, you know how I roll. You know how I roll, sweet thing. So let's talk about the Harriet Tubman movie and ADOS. Hatapu. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Harun Nefer. This is Kasank Ma'a Keparu with another broadcast for you. And in this quick broadcast, we'll make this a short one today. I want to talk about ADOS and the new Harriet Tubman movie. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button at the bottom there. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. And don't forget, we have free ebooks for you. You can click on the links below and download the ebooks and start reading them today. They expand on my teachings and get more into the Kemetic philosophy and the esoteric occult realm. And if you're not already a member, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 or $20 per month. You can cancel at any time. Last but not least, please share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. So let's talk about a couple of quick topics, and I'm going to take some notes, and all you magicians out there, or magi's out there, should be taking notes as well. I want to talk about, real briefly, ADOS. And if you are not familiar with ADOS, where's my markers at? ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slaves. Now, this is a movement that is really growing rapidly here in North America, and it started specifically to address a concern, and that concern is reparations. For a long time, African Americans have been crying out for reparations. And until recently, it's been hard to determine, well, how are the reparations going to come? Is it a monetary compensation? What is it going to be? And who should get it? So they created the title ADOS to distinguish between those who were brought here from Africa to be slaves versus those who are immigrants. And those who are brought here to work as slaves are known as ADOS, and therefore are entitled to compensation for the legacy of slavery. So they take on the mantle or the title of ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. So just right off the bat, to let you know my thoughts on it, I definitely am all for this. I believe reparations is long since overdue. The Japanese got reparations. The Jews got reparations from the Holocaust, so it's time that African Americans get reparations for the North Atlantic slave trade. Now, one of the things I want to talk about that has been always a concern with me, and I've expressed this in some of my very earlier videos, but not in more recent videos, is the fact that, well, just to give you a case in point, today I went to the pharmacy, and there's an Asian pharmacist. She waits on me every now and then, and I noticed that she always tends to give me a hard time. And finally, today I had enough of it, and I basically had to address it by calling in the manager. And her treatment of me stems from, which to me is very obvious, is racist. One of the things that African Americans have had to deal with in this country is the racial totem pole. And what do I mean by that? That means that the immigrants coming into this country, be them Latino, Asians, Indian, Pakistani, Arab, whatever, there is an unwritten kind of agreement, gentleman's agreement, I don't know what you want to call it, or where to climb up the racial totem pole, you have to step on African Americans. And there is this racial hierarchy. And at the bottom is African Americans. And unfortunately, every race or group that comes to this country learns fairly quickly that to get ahead, they must associate more closely to white people, people of European descent, and then disassociate themselves from Black people, African Americans. And if you've watched some of my earlier videos, one of the individuals who committed some of the most grievous crimes against African Americans in this country was Mahatma Gandhi. And the even the title, I should call him Gandhi, because Mahat is more of an honored title, and he is not a person that should be honored at all, because he was trying to start a racial war between Indians and Africans in South Africa. And he always referred to Black people in derogatory terms. And he was one that practiced the racial totem pole, because he wanted to get Indians above, he wanted to get Indians out of British rule, but yet he saw Indians as above Africans, above Black people. And he wrote often about his thoughts on Black people in a very, very negative and derogatory way. This is a man who practiced Hinduism. This is a man who was said to be at peace, peace-loving. Yet he did nothing to do away with India's social caste system, which is still in place. So in my mind, he is a farce, and he is not worthy of a title of honor. Now, as I dealt with this woman in the pharmacy, what I really, it made me think back to all of the times where I got poor service, whether it be in a restaurant, whether it be in a department store, what have you. And we've all known situations where you're in a department store and you're waiting forever for somebody to come and wait on you, you know? So let me go back to what I was stating before. Sorry, why people want to text me right now? That's very interesting. Okay, what am I up to? This unwritten rule of climbing the racial totem pole is something that many immigrants engage in, because they want, when they get to this country, they understand it's a dog-eat-dog world, and they want to climb as fast as possible. And the way that they can climb, and the way they see that it'll be easy for them to climb, is to step on African Americans. This is a practice that has to stop immediately. And I think a lot of it falls on the responsibility of Black people in this country, because in large part, we have allowed it to happen. And not totally, but in a large part, we've allowed it to happen. And I have seen in my career, especially in corporate America, Asian, I can't say Asian men, but I can say Asian women, Latino women, Jamaican women, commit some of the most racist acts I have ever seen against Black people. And most of my life, I have fought against that. In fact, I have actually filed lawsuits in court, and I have taken on cases where women and men who have been unjustly terminated, I have actively taken on their case and brought their cases to court. That's how passionate I am about this subject matter. This practice must immediately stop. It is appalling to have individuals coming from other countries to this country and then have a disrespect of individuals who built this country. Slavery was horrific, and you've all seen the videos I played on this subject, which kind of gives you a peek into the atrocities that happened during slavery. And throughout all of that, African Americans have still maintained their dignity and came out of it, whereas the Native Americans almost were wiped off the continent. But to go through all of those trials and tribulations of slavery, to come out and have people of your same hue and complexion commit worse crimes of racism, worse than white people, there's no excuse for that. There is no excuse for that. Do you understand me? In fact, there was a program recently where a Black man married an Indian woman. And her father, who was just as dark as the Black man, was so appalled that she was marrying a Black man that he hired a hitman to knock off the Black man. This is how sick of a mindset he had, being just as dark as the Black man, but he could not accept the fact that she would be marrying a Black man. This is how the virus, the ergomore of racism, this is how deeply it's penetrated the psyche of people. to the point of people just as dark as you want to call you all kinds of racial epithets. Now, many of you know that I promote magic. And I always say to you that if it comes down to getting to a physical altercation, you should excuse yourself from the situation or environment and go and do a ritual, invoking the god Haruka-Hudi, the warrior god, or whatever god you pray to intervene on your behalf. But because I advocate for magic, does not mean that I negate other methods to address the situation. And I feel that the climate is such, and I'm not going to point the finger at Donald Trump because I don't think he's the progenitor of this. But the thing I want to tell you is this. As a magician, you have to understand when to apply certain tools within your arsenal. Certain times you may need to take a legal system, go through the legal system. Other times you may need to do a magical ritual. So don't think because I'm a priest or magician that I won't take you to court. I will. Or that I won't get the authorities involved. And you must learn to do the same thing. People of color have a unique history in this country. And for others to come here and disrespect us is inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And while I'm on this topic, let me say something very important. I think that African American women have acted disgracefully. They have played part in this racist propaganda instituted by the hierarchy, knowing full well what the hierarchy's plan is. And what I mean by that is African American women taking part in feminism, going out there and taking sides against African American males. That's a disgraceful thing to do. Don't do that. Don't buy into that, because the system targets women in general, whether it be African American women or white women. The system targets women in general because they know that you're emotional, and they know if the women fall, it's very easy to take over. Now, with that said, let me say this. I think that the treatment of African American women, how African American women have been treated, has been disgraceful. When you understand the truth that Black women are the first women, were the first mothers, were the first priestesses. Let me say it again. Black women were the first mothers, were the first priestesses. Aset, Isis, was a Black woman, or is a Black woman. Black women have a very unique history. When you look at ancient Kemet, Atlantis, the great Ethiopian empires, you are seeing a culture that was nurtured and brought to fruition by Black women. And for this country and this world, the way they have treated Black women is disgraceful. Is disgraceful. And it is up to all of us to correct this wrong. And let me say this again. The current system that's in place allows immigrants or those who come into this country to take part into the racial totem pole. It is a system that rewards those for engaging and playing that role. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you play the racial totem pole, you are rewarded. If you act as a taskmaster and put your people in check, you are rewarded. The way that we can combat this system is to understand one thing as Kemetians and as magicians. You are consciousness. You are not a color. You are not a gender. You are not a nationality. You are not a political affiliation. You are consciousness. And there is only one consciousness. There's not a multitude of consciousness. This is what we have to instill in the people on this planet. They must come to an understanding of this. There's no other way to get us out of this grand chess game. You see, the enemy is not the common white person on the street. The enemy is not the common black person on the street. The enemy is not the common Chinese person on the street. The enemy, if you want to use that term, and I'm only using it to facilitate the conversation because you really have no enemies, but the enemy is the ruling elite. They are the puppet masters. They are the ones that are pulling the strings. They are the one that has created the concept of racism, sexism. They feed off that energy of strife. They feed off the energy of war. They feed off the energy of bloodshed. There is no race. Race is an illusion. It's an illusion. Do you understand? And we have bought into that illusion. Let me explain how the fourth dimension works. We live in 4D realm, 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. You see, they want us to hate Donald Trump because they want us to, you see, before they would create these enemies of Saddam Hussein. You understand what I mean? Gaddafi. And when they found they couldn't create any more foreign enemies, they created Donald Trump to be the enemy. Because they have to have a boogeyman. They have to have someone to galvanize our energy and to fight against, because they don't want us to look at and see who the real enemy is, who the real puppet masters are. So it's always the white man's fault. It's always the white woman's fault. It's always the black man's fault. It's always the black woman's fault. They have to point the finger at someone. But we don't know who the real enemy is. See, George Lucas, the great filmmaker, was trying to tell you something when he created his film, Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. Understand what that subtitle means, The Phantom Menace. You see, the ruling elite, the Illuminati, is a phantom menace. They're hiding behind the curtain. They are the Wizard of Oz. They are the wizard hiding behind the curtain. They don't want you to know they exist. They are pulling the strings. They are behind the SJWs. They are behind the Me Too movement. They are behind feminism. They are behind racism. They're pulling the strings. They're getting us to fight each other. They're creating fictitious enemies. Do you understand? And we're buying into it. You have black women getting involved in the feminist movement, then talking about black men are no good. You have white women talking about that they've been oppressed, which is a lie. They've been oppressed by white males. They're a minority class. They deserve protection, which is a lie. You've got the LGBT community now making great strides in advancement because they're stepping all over African-American rights. You see, the civil rights was created for African-Americans to address a specific situation. And instead of African-Americans getting what they deserve in terms of reparations, to not give them what they deserve, they give it to the LGBT community. And then they get the LGBT community to fight against the African-American community. You see, that's how you play the game. You take resources from one and you give it to another and you watch them fight. Never recognizing who the real enemy is. Let me explain something to you. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're black. But I have told people who are gay over and over again who don't listen. I have told people who are gay that the ruling elite doesn't give a damn about you. I have told white people this. The ruling elite doesn't give a damn about you. The ruling elite doesn't care about color. They only create that construct to create because of divide and conquer. It's easy if you divide the population, have the population fight against each other. It's easy now to conquer them. You cannot conquer a united people. Do you understand that? Now, you're saying, well, if we have the racial totem pole and every immigrant group that comes over here is taught to step all over African Americans to climb the racial totem pole, then if we create our own realities, where did that come from? And good question, you know, spiritual elevation. That was a good question. You asked really good questions, spiritual elevation. Well, you have to understand this. See, the ruling elite is very smart. They're very clever. They know how to do this. What they do is they'll plant a seed. They'll introduce a seed into mainstream media. Now, if you take that seed in, dwell upon it, then you, as a reality generation machine, will manifest that as reality. You see, the ideas and thoughts that are out there come and go. You're not responsible for your thoughts. But if you take that thought, you hold on to it, then your psyche, your subconscious mind, your spirit will manifest it as a reality. This is why you're going through all of these trials and tribulations. Because when the Illuminati or the ruling elite put out those seeds, those ideas, instead of ignoring them, you took them into your spirit and you manifested them. Now you're dealing with them. I've told people Donald Trump is not the enemy. Don't buy into it. Leave it alone. Ignore it. Ignore him. If you focus on him, then you'll shift to a reality where he's even more powerful and where he is racist. You see, you're allowing the phantom menace, the hidden enemy, to define your reality, to create your reality. They're using you. They need you. You're the battery, as in the Matrix. You're the reality generation machine, and they need you because when they put out their messages, they subliminal messages through mainstream media, they need you to manifest those things. But if you ignore them, you can't manifest them. And they lose, and they lose. This is why you'll never see on my channel me going crazy over Gandhi. Me going crazy over white supremacy, because I understand that if I focus on it, it expands and becomes a reality. So I ignore it. And in the Kemetic tradition or in the religion that I teach or my teachings, we call that going dark. Hebrew, you're the man or the woman, I'm sorry. Itepu. My beloved, you create the reality that you're fighting with right now. You create the enemy. Simply by taking an idea, dwelling upon it, empowering it with emotions, it manifests in this fourth dimensional realm. Do you not understand that? Ashe. We have to learn the manipulation techniques that they use to get us to manifest their reality and start to manifest the reality that we want. But remember now, in your arsenal, I've talked about there are some times when you have to use magic and there are times you have to go a legal route. So if someone's stepping over your rights, then you have to go to the oracles, ask the oracle of Tahuti what you should do and how you should address it. I personally think, this is just my opinion, that African American women should band together and file a legal claim against what has happened in slavery to them to address their specific situation, because they were raped during slavery. And they were forced to give birth to biracial babies, where those babies were not inheritors of the white slave master's wealth. That's how I feel. But you have manipulation of the feminist agenda to where African-American women are taught to hate African-American males as if African-American males spearhead a patriarchy, which is not true. But whatever you do not do it from an emotional perspective. You do it from a perspective of love and with an understanding that you are God. You see, the Illuminati, the ruling elite, has taught white males in this country to disrespect the female, the feminine energy. And that needs to be addressed. It started with the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD, when he took Mary down from her position of leadership and put in her place the worship of Jesus over Mary. But I digress. This leads me into the new movie Harriet, which is the story of Harriet Tubman, the freedom fighter. Now, there's controversy around this movie, and I do not intend to see the movie. And the controversy stems from the fact that they casted the lead actress, who is not an ADOS person, American descendant of slave. She's a foreigner, and that's a problem there. But that's something we can deal with. But what is a great travesty of the movie is the fact in the movie, it is propaganda to get African-American women to hate African-American males, because the enemy in the movie is a black man. He's a black male bounty hunter who's, from what I understand, trying to track down Harriet Tubman and the individuals following her to freedom. This black male bounty hunter character is fictitious. And there is no historical evidence ever in slavery of a black man as a bounty hunter. And in fact, it makes absolutely no sense. Are you telling me that the slave masters would give a black male bounty hunter, just say a black male in general, a gun? What do you think he would do with that gun? He would shoot every white slave master there. But you see, Hollywood has to put the propaganda out there to brainwash. See, Hollywood is bent on two things right now. They want to get white women to hate white men. They want to get society at large to hate white men. They want to get black women to hate black men. You see, the ruling elite want to take over, and they know that the only way they can take over is to get rid of the opposing force that stands in their way from total global domination. That opposing force is the male energy. But they cannot combat the male energy one-on-one, mano to mano. So they have to go through the feminine energy. So what they do is they tell women through mass media and propaganda that you're empowered, that you have been oppressed by your man. And women who are very emotional fall victim to that, because in the movie, they make it an emotional thing. We cannot fall victim to this propaganda. I want to take a look at and it's kind of like a Trojan horse, where they give you the trailer to these films and they make you think, oh, it's a film about freedom fighters. It's really cool. But then when you get into the theater, you see it's full of propaganda. Let's take a look at this, shall we?
The There's not much time. You got to be miles away from here for dawn. Where is she? Follow that North Star. If there are no stars, just follow the river. Listen for them. Fear is your enemy. Whoa, easy now.
I'm gonna be free or die.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman. You are welcome here anytime. If I'm free, my family should be too. I made up my mind, I'm going back. You're confident, composed. When trouble comes, you'll be ready.
Papers. Says here you're 5.5 feet tall. You ain't more than 5 feet.
Must have won my high boots that day.
Why you back here? It ain't safe.
I come to get you. Bring all of you to freedom.
Do you know what would happen if you got caught? You got lucky, Harriet.
I made it this far on my own. So don't you tell me what I can't do.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad. Everybody, everywhere is looking for you.
God told me the people to own people.
Find this thief and burn her at the stake.
Harriet!
I will give every last drop of blood in my veins until this monster called slavery is dead. Ready?
Now, of course, I mean, you look at it, it looks great. It looks like this really telling story of this woman who is a freedom fighter. But then you get to the theater and you see this black man is hunting her, and he's the enemy. So it's a Trojan horse. It's a switcheroo. It's a bait and switch because they have to program you. You know what I mean? This is what they're doing right now. This is the name of the game. It's like to program white women that your problem is the white man. To program black women, your problem is the black man. This is what we're facing. Now, as I said before, these are just seeds. These are suggestions. If you take it and you dwell on it, then you will make it a reality because you are God. I want you to understand that. So you have to be very careful of what you're allowing into your spirit. Be very, very careful. But these are also great times because, you see, you made the decision. You made the agreement to be here at this particular time to help the planet transition to 5D, to help us all spiritually grow. That is your mission. That's what you're here for, to bring to the population on this planet an understanding that you are not color, you are not race, you are not political affiliation, you are consciousness having a experience. That's who we are. And when we realize and identify with the true essence of who we are, therein lies the power. You see, if you want to know about slavery, if you want to know about Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner, all you need to go is in trance. And in trance, you can astral project to any period in history and experience it firsthand. Do you understand? You don't need to read a book on the subject matter. You don't need to see a movie. It's all within your spirit. It's still there. It's still in the Akashic records, the experience. Hollywood, the ruling elite, are going to do the best that they can to lie to you, to program you. Because their goal, their end goal, is to enslave us all, white and black, to enslave us all, Asian, Arab, Indian. These are erroneous labels and titles and classifications. The ruling elite doesn't care, but they've created this for the purposes of division. And we're going to keep fighting each other over it unless we tune into our power. This, you see, they have constructed a matrix that is so brilliant, so sophisticated. You see, not only did they construct the matrix, they put in place a mechanism so that the matrix would check itself, keep itself enslaved. And that mechanism is religion. Because the modern Western religions teach you to give up your power, to place your faith in an external force, to acquiesce to this external force, when in reality the power is within you. See, the ruling elite, they practice the occult. They practice the Egyptian mystery system, all the while teaching you a very dumbed down version of it. We have to help our brothers and sisters get out of the matrix. And in order to help them, we first have to help ourselves. And in helping ourselves, our vibrational frequency will resonate, and then they'll pick up on that frequency, and then they'll awaken. We don't need to do it by a type of physical revolution. When you change, people will pick up on that energy and they will change too. See, when you change, you shift to a parallel world where there are others who are different now. Because the minute you change, everything changes in your reality. This is why there's no need to try and influence other people. You don't have to, because your vibrational shift or your vibration will automatically shift you to the right parallel world. If you want your mate to act in a certain way, you don't need to talk to her. You don't need to try and convince her to act in a certain way. Just change your frequency. Then you'll shift to a different reality where you'll have the mate that you always wanted. But you don't have to fight people over this. This is why I say, tune into the power within yourself, the magic within yourself, the God state within yourself, and that you will realize the potential and opportunity that's there for you. And this is my message for today. I want to thank you, Magi's, for tuning in. Please do not go see that movie, Harriet. It is propaganda. And realize that the power is you, not some outside force. This is Kasank Ma Keparu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti, and my aunt is the beautiful goddess Hedaru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.